The new law fulfills the old. I'd just like to pause for a second on two elements we've just heard. One is the question of looking at a woman lustfully. It can be closer to us than we think. It can be in our pocket, on a smartphone. It can be on a screen at home. Once one is in internet, one is potentially engaged with demons. What comes out of a screen can stick there. I'll come back to that in a minute. The other is this question of swearing. If we mean yes, let it be yes, without anything that needs to underline it. Whether it be the name of God, or whether it be something vulgar, it's heard on high. And it goes down on our copybook. And it's all unfinished business that one day will come back to us. I remember actually in school, our good English teacher was also the British instruction teacher. He was telling us that the use of swearing is basically lazy. We haven't got any more wit than that. I mentioned the question of screens and things that come out of them. We have to be mature human beings in control of what we turn on and off. Be in control and not controlled. Few people seem to know how to be in charge. Many people just can't bear the sound of silence and must have something on as wallpaper. It's ruining our interior life. Things can come out of screens. Grace can actually come out of screens. Grace can come out of very unexpected places. Years ago, there was a case somewhere in one of the dance salons in France. A young man was dancing with his future wife, he hoped. And between dances, they sat down. She pulled out her powder box and blew into it and said, blowing the dust into his face, souviens-toi, homme, que tu es poussière, et qu'à la poussière tu retourneras. Remember, man, that thou art dust, and unto dust thou shalt return. Something hit a chord. He went out, looked at the stars, and thought of eternity. Some days later, he went to La Trappe and knocked on the door and asked if he could enter. And he persevered until death, sent there by what came out of the powder box. When I was in school, I think I must have been about 14 at the time, heading at that point for the Protestant ministry, for I was in Wales brought up of Protestant parents. And just by chance, at Llangollen, in the middle of the country where we happened to put on the old black and white television, which occasionally worked. And what came on but a film that you may or may not know, especially those of you who are of a certain age. And by the way, the old golden oldies are safer than the new ones. I think you know why. It was the Song of Bernadette. If you haven't seen it, it's worth seeing because it's very good drama and it's well acted and based on truth. And so I looked at this with my father, and something inside me said, if that's true, I'm heading for the wrong pulpit. It can't be true, and what we have in our outfit also true. One or the other. Either we've been given an incomplete message with regard to the saints, and particularly the Blessed Virgin Mary, or they got it wrong. Never after that did I say a single word against the Roman Catholic Church. It made me think. I mention it on this day for two reasons. You have here, we're in the dark here, I think it's that one, isn't it? A beautiful image of that. She was 14, and on this day, the first apparition took place. Now, as a result of that, I went on the bus to Oswestry to go to the General Library to look into what actually happened there. And again, I was knocked between the eyes. This looks true. I've got to think about this seriously. Now, do you see what's going on there, friends? Grace was coming out there of a screen. It was good use of modern media. And we need to know the difference, because a television or a computer now is basically a massive library. And we have to choose and be selective. Think on these things before you Google and goggle passively for 3 hours in the night. It won't come back, those 3 hours. I make a jump in time. Many years later, I was by then 22, and with one of my best friends from the same parish, we were at Lourdes on the 7th of September. He was entering one monastery in England, and I was entering another one in France the following day, the 8th of September. And we felt the power of the place. I make another jump. Recently, now in the last few years, something happened at that place. And this actually you can see yourself, because it's been put on YouTube. The title, I think, is in English, but it could be in French, Miracle Eucharistic Miracle. This happened. The basilique, the underground basilica of Lourdes, was full of priests and bishops and laity. And they celebrated, as they do in France, with great dignity. Nothing was spared. In France, you won't find a celebration on a Saturday evening or a Sunday going on for less than an hour and not fully sung. But this was the case. And you know what happened? The Lord showed He was pleased with what was going on at that altar and the care that was being given to the Son of God. At a certain point, all the bishops and concelebrants put their hands out towards the altar. The organ began to rumble and to suggest otherness in the way they can in France. And all the concelebrants, we're talking about hundreds, with the main presiding bishop, who had a good voice, went into the standard setting of the consecration, which is right throughout France. Starting at the epiclesis, when the Holy Spirit is invoked, and going on to the last prayer, which they say in common. And it happened! And it can be seen. After the consecration, the massive pattern the bishop had went into the air and stayed there. It's off the altar for a good length of time. What's that telling you, my friends? The Lord is saying, I am King. And by the way, you have him there, King of the universe, in the other stained glass window. The one who will come to judge the living and the dead, with the mitres of popes and crowns of kings well presented at his feet. The Lord! So the Lord was saying, this is what I delight in. Carry on. I am your God. Give me only and ever